We are responsible for approving budgets, contracts, personal appointments, and to listen to reports from the superintendent. We are not here to make administrative or management decisions pertaining to the daily operations of the district. This is the responsibility of the superintendent. In compliance with the State Government Code on Open Meetings, tonight's agenda has been appropriately posted. This is a meeting in the public, not a meeting of the public. As our guests, you are welcome to observe and listen. These proceedings are being video and audio recorded and will become part of Judson's permanent legal record. In order that the tape adequately reflects these proceedings, please silence your mobile devices and refrain from talking while others are speaking. Since it is legally mandated that these proceedings are recorded accurately, I may have to ask for order periodically should I notice that disruptions are interfering with our recording capabilities. Once again, I extend to each of you a sincere welcome from the entire school board. Thank you for your interest in Judson ISD. We have established a quorum, and I will call roll. Ms. Rodriguez.
Jennifer Rodriguez, present.
Ms. Canoyer.
Suzanne Canoyer, present.
Ms. King.
Shatanya King, present.
Mr. Diaz.
Rafael Diaz, present.
Renee Pichelle, present, and I see that Deborah Eaton is absent. Hopefully she'll come in later. Okay. At this time, would you please stand for the invocation and the pledges?
Thank you, ma'am. If we could all bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, once again, we come to you saying thank you for another opportunity to come and do the business of the district, God. We would say that we appreciate and are thankful for making it through the winter storm a couple of weeks ago. And we would ask that you guide our hearts and minds this evening as they make decisions about the students in the community and our district. All these things we ask and pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
And then if we could stand by for the video for the pledge. Oh, sorry.
Forward, march! Detail, right flank, march! Marked on, march! Detail, halt! Present, arms! Present, arms!
Hi, I'm Catherine Senior from Masters Elementary. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to Texas, one state under God, indivisible.
Thank you.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Madam President, before we start our recognitions, you know, every board meeting I've been meaning to say this and I forget. I'd really like to thank the board because I don't think that everybody understands that before a board meeting, there's so much preparation work that goes in there. And there's usually almost 100 pages of documents that board members have to go through to look at all the supporting documents. Some board months, there's even more than 100 pages, but I just want to thank this board because I know that y'all go through all those pages. You ask questions of me and my team before the board meetings. So I just want to thank the board members for the diligent work that you do before all the board meetings. It is very much appreciated.
Thank you, Dr. Ball. That means so much.
And now we'll have our recognitions.
Good evening, everyone. Let me open this up for you. Sorry, 1 second. Okay, here we go. So for this month of recognitions, our first recognition this evening comes from both Judson and Veterans Memorial High School. For the third year in a row, art students from Judson and Veterans have participated in the McNay Art Museum Spotlight program. This year, our AP students took on the challenge of responding collaboratively to an artwork from McNay's permanent collection. The Spotlight exhibit will be on display through mid-May. So here are some samples of the art that they submitted. This, Our second recognition, we would like to congratulate Judson High School senior dental interns who passed our Texas State Board's dental assisting certification exam. Despite the different obstacles that COVID brought to the school year, they worked as a true family and persevered. Judson ISD dental program is designed to develop the skills necessary for the dental industry, to later become certified as a registered dental assistant. The internship is a 2-year program. The student will enter the program their junior year, in which the student will be in the classroom/lab, learning the various roles and skills of a dental assistant, including receiving their OSHA, first aid, and CPR certifications, and skills in clinical chairside assisting, dental tools and materials, infection control, and laboratory procedures. The class content includes head, neck, oral anatomy, tooth morphology, oral microbiology, oral pathology, embryology, histology, and psychology, pharmacology, pain control, preventative dentistry, and nutrition-based radiology, and much more in job-seeking skills for the industry. Congrats again, Judson High School seniors. Our final recognition is more of a program that we wanted to kind of highlight this evening. It involves the Spanish immersion program. It's designed for English-speaking students that want to learn Spanish and are entering first grade in the 2021 and 2022 school year. This innovative language program is offered at Wortham Oaks Elementary and Mary Lou Hartman Elementary. We invite parents to learn more about the amazing opportunity, eligibility requirements, and program information. The dates for the remaining parent information meetings are March 16th at 6 p.m. and March 27th at 10 a.m. Our team has created a video to showcase the program, and we would really love to share that with you tonight.
When I get done, when I stop running, when you turn me on.
The Spanish Immersion Program is intended for English-speaking students, and the ultimate goal is biliteracy and bilingualism. And so we integrate Spanish into all the daily curriculum, so that they get that experience of the Spanish language and learn to speak and communicate in the Spanish language. We use a lot of visual cues, pictures, gestures, a lot of wait time, so the students have time to react to the questions and to understand the concepts. We do a lot of writing, reading, any way that we can, art, songs, chants, rhymes, anything that makes it fun and engaging for them.
I think why Spanish immersion has been so successful here at Wortham Oaks is the buy-in that we created from the very beginning in our community. The students were really excited with their parents to apply to be part of the Spanish immersion program, and it's a very unique program. We're only the 3rd district in all of Bexar County.
I'm really small at counting. I can count to 100 in Spanish, so I'm excited to see my friends, and I'm excited to see Miss Payman. I'm excited to do some work because we have to
Nido, nido. Go, 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 go.
My family wants me to start learning more. That's why they put me in this program, and it's pretty good. I think the program is good at itself, and we could just explore, and we could tell other people that they should do it so they can learn and explore it with us.
Hola, ¿qué tal? Vuelves a traer.
And that's all our recognitions for tonight. Yes, ma'am.
This is great. I just have a question. You told us that the 27th was at 10 a.m., but it just said on there 11. So which?
From 10 to 11.
Oh, 10 to 11. I missed that part. Okay, thank you.
Yes, of course. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to say for the record that Ms. Eaton came in. Good evening, Ms. Eaton. 6:06 p.m. Okay, so we're all done? All right.
Yes, ma'am.
We are down to the acknowledgment of visitors and citizens to be heard. There are none for this evening, so we'll go on for the consideration of consent items. And board, as I read, if there are any that you would like to have pulled, just let me know. 4A, consider and take action regarding approving the minutes for the regular meeting held on January the 21st, 2021. B, consider and take action regarding approving the monthly financial information as of December the 31st, 2020. C, consider and take action regarding approving expenditures equal to or greater than $50,000. D, consider and take action regarding approving budget transfers across expenditure function categories. E, consider and take action regarding approving cash investment report for all funds as of December the 31st, 2020. F, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the architectural firms for services related to RFQ 16-07, architectural services, various small projects.
Pull. Thank you.
Item G, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking for engineering firms for civil engineering services for various pavement projects. H, consider and take action regarding approving a proclamation to declare March Social Worker Month, the theme, Social Workers Are Essential. And I'm going to pull that H, Dr. Ball, because that will be read aloud, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Ms. Robinson will be reading it after.
Okay. I, consider and take action regarding approving the Judson ISD 2021-2022 instructional calendar, option B, as presented. J, consider and take action regarding approving the Judson Early College Academy 2021-2022 instructional calendar as presented. K, consider and take action regarding the STAR EOC test waivers for the April and May STAR EOC administration for K through 8 and 9 through 12 as presented. L, consider and take action regarding approving the additions, revisions, deletions of the local policies reflected in the summary of recommendations resulting from the policy review session that was conducted in November 2019 as prepared by TASB Policy Services. M, consider and take action regarding approving the Everfi Incorporated Agreement from the Judson ISD on behalf of itself and each of its participating schools collectively, district. Yes. N, consider and take action regarding approving the innovative courses for the 2021-2022 school year.
Pull.
Okay. O, consider and take action regarding approving missed school day waivers to the TEA. P, consider and take action regarding approving emergency and move to remote instruction. All right, at this time, we will vote on items A through E, G, I through L, and O and P. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the consent items as listed by our president.
Second.
Is there a second? Okay, thank you. It's been moved and seconded, and we'll do a roll call vote. I'll start with Ms. Eaton.
Yes, approve.
Ms. Eaton, aye? Oh, okay, I'm sorry,
I thought
I'm
you heard
sorry.
me.
I'm having a hard time hearing. Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. King?
Shatanya King, aye.
Mr. Diaz?
Rafael Diaz, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Motion passes unanimously. We'll start with item F, consider and take action regarding approving the ranking of the architectural firms. Mr. Diaz, I believe you pulled that.
Yes, ma'am.
Go right ahead.
Thank you, Madam President. So I have no problem with the item at all. I needed more so clarification and the opportunity for a quick conversation on the rankings. Actually, not even the rankings. So correct me if I'm wrong. So we determined the rankings based on the pool of approved vendors that we approved back in 2016, correct?
Correct.
I wanted to get a better understanding, and I want to make sure that we're all clear on it, that what the future plans are to update the metrics or the data associated with each vendor to ensure that we have a better view of who those companies are today. Now, let me tell you why I'm saying this. So as we go out for projects, large or small, I want to make sure that the district is in the best position possible to know who we're working with, and that data changes. And it could get better or it could get worse. Regardless of how it goes, though, having rankings based on really outdated data is probably, there's probably a better practice for us. I know that there is in the works, and I know that you all might want to give us some insight as to what the next steps are to ensure that we stay up to date on who we're working with in the district.
Okay. So just to make sure I understand the question correctly.
I said a lot, I'm sorry.
You're basically asking us if we plan to update our rubric that we use, right? What do we call it, the rubric or metrics?
Well, more
Was
so,
that the question?
not really the rubric,
Okay.
but more so, are we going out or opening any processes to get new vendors and to ensure that we have updated data on the vendor? So for example, if we're basing our ranking on 2016 data, if that firm has gotten larger, smaller, had any issues, I want to make sure that we're basing the ranking on actual data today.
I think I understand the question. And Helen, would you like to, Helen would like to speak on that.
I feel funny, stand to the side here. Okay, yes. So one of the things that we do have, and completely agree, is we do have data from 2016. So one of the things that we're going to be doing this coming weekend, as a matter of fact, is we're going to be advertising again. Historically, it seems like the district goes through this process of architect engineer selection every 5 years. So it's time. It's time. The data that we have is old. And going through the data, it's hard because some of the firms who maybe their team that they presented in their qualifications book, some of the people don't work there anymore. So it is very hard for our team to go through and do a qualification on people that we know are not at that firm, potentially.
Sure.
So you're absolutely right. We have to have current data. We do go through a rigorous selection process. So we'll advertise this coming weekend. We'll get responses back so that we can bring recommendations to you. It will be a pool of architects, engineers, etc., and we'll bring that recommendation back to you in April. So we are in the process of doing that. The advertisement will go out this weekend.
Great.
So I expect we're going to get quite a bit of responses. We've done really well with the selection pool that we had previously. I think we had 24 architects actually submit in 2016. Of course, a lot of things have happened at the district in the last 5 years, so I don't know what kind of response we'll get, but certainly we've done really well through the construction projects we currently have ongoing to rebuild relationships, create new relationships in hopes that we can kind of turn the tide and get good people doing work for us. We have struggled. There's a couple of people that we're using that are out of town we've had some problems with. So you're so right. I mean, selecting people that are qualified, the best team, the people that can provide support to Judson ISD, give us the quality that we expect.
Sure.
Because it shows in the finished product of our projects. So we'll be bringing all of that back to you in April.
Great.
For discussion.
Ms. Helena, just 2 follow-up questions to what you said.
Yes.
Right. With this process being the only mechanism that we have to ensure that you all have the right data to make the appropriate selections, and making sure that this is an equitable process
Yes.
for the vendor as well, that they can
Absolutely.
provide us these things, but that you make the ultimate best decision for us. Is a 5-year cycle too long? Should we consider shorter cycles? That's my first question.
Yes.
And my second question is, in that cycle term, if there is a material change to that firm, whether good or bad, right? Maybe they got some accolades, maybe they grew acquisitions, or maybe we know they've had lawsuits, they've been found, guilty, so on and so forth. I don't want to tie your hands.
Right.
So is there a process for updating, both triggered by the vendor or triggered by staff?
Okay. So question 1, the frequency of which we ask for the information. So some school districts do it if they're calling a bond. So they'll actually do AE selections for a bond. So if you do a bond in 2013, they'll do a selection then. If you do another one in 2015, they'll actually do another RFQ at that point in time to get qualifications, right? So it's really a district decision. We certainly can do it more often. This is historically what Judson has done. It's nothing set in stone. We're happy to listen to the board. If you want it more frequently, we're happy to do whatever you would like us to do. It doesn't make any difference to us either way. Because I hear you. People move, things happen at firms with either success and or failures. We don't want that to tie our hands as far as decision making to hire somebody that we know has had some problems, because we don't want them to become our problems. And so we need the flexibility to actually update. Now, one thing I will say, so when we bring the grouping to you, likely we will bring it in a way where we're saying, here's a pool of architects that do large construction, right? $20 million projects, $30 million projects, $50 million projects. That is one level of architect firm, right? A lot of resources to back them up to make sure they can take care of our need. On the other hand, we'll bring another pool of architects for the smaller projects, right? There are offices that may have 5 to 10 employees, much lower overhead, and certainly that's where they're going to shine. They would not shine on a large project because they wouldn't be able to keep up with the need, right? So when we bring it back, we'll bring different groupings, which is not what was done in 2016. So it made it much harder. Now, that being said, we'll bring a pool. And then in this case, when we make a recommendation for a project, we're actually reviewing the firms based on their qualifications for that specific project, right? So in 2016, they pulled architects. They selected, I think, 24. Through the course of 2013, 2016, 2017 bond, I think they've used 15 of those 24. Not saying that's the best way to do it, but we will review it based on the qualifications of the firm, based on the project and the need that we have at that time. Because sometimes it's even our needs change.
Sure.
Right? So a lot of variables there, but we'll have that flexibility. The process they used before is not something I would probably recommend moving forward. But we will still look at it project by project when we make those selections for the teams.
Great.
Does that help?
No, perfect. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Just to kind of wrap it up,
Yes.
and you made a great point, which is how do we segment the pool to ensure that smaller firms, and we're all maybe a part of or benefited from small businesses in our families, how do we make sure that we can provide them an equitable shot at something that'll make them hopefully grow, while ensuring that they provide us a good product and a good service. So I love that. And then just to put a bow on it, in terms of the frequency of these processes, for me, I'd probably look to you all to determine what's the best practice, because I'm not qualified to tell you that.
Right.
But
And we can make a recommendation,
yeah,
certainly,
but I think that would be lovely at some point, whenever that's appropriate.
I think 5 years is
Dr.
quite a
Ball.
long time.
Yeah, so whatever the best practice is to ensure that you all are armed with the best data, best process, and that we give you that, that latitude.
Okay.
All right, that's it. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Helen.
Ms. Helen, I have a
sorry.
question. Please tell us what is the average best practices for the number of years that you would secure a firm for whatever the project may be, but what is the average of best practice?
I would think 3 years would be
That's
good.
what I thought.
Because on some of the larger projects, by the time you actually do the design, which, for instance, on a high school project, the design timeline is about 18 months, right? On a middle school, 12 months. On an elementary, anywhere from 9 to 12 months. So you've already eaten a year right there, just in design. So you don't have a good feeling for how do they do during the construction process? What is their construction administration like? What kind of support do they provide us during that time frame? And then in addition to that, when the project closes out, there's still warranty and closeout paperwork and maybe some things that went wrong during construction or things that we have to tweak. The mechanical system doesn't work exactly like we thought it might work. So they're still providing support even after we
After
turn
the
it over.
project is,
So you have to have a very good understanding of that entire process.
Right.
So I would say 3 years captures that whole time.
Okay.
So that when we're reviewing, we're making decisions based on the information on the page, the qualifications packet they turn in. But in addition to that, the experiences we're having in the field and the experiences we have in facilities planning, how quickly do they respond to our questions? Are they there to provide support for the questions that the general contractor's having? What's the quality of the documents they're providing to us? What's the quality of the closeout? How do they administrate the project? I mean, there are so many variables involved. So we need a good understanding because that's how we're making decisions. It's not arbitrary. I mean, we have some architects right now that are not performing to the standard I would like to see doing work for Judson ISD, right? So we'll work on that and, take all those things in consideration. We do have a rubric that we use. Some of it is subjective, of course, because it's based on your dealings with them in the field and all that. But we do try to be fair. We try to look at qualifications and really just make a recommendation that's best for the district. We don't have any skin in the game. We have to make sure that the projects go well because that's your expectation of us, that we've thoroughly looked at all the criteria and made the best recommendation to you. Because I'm certain if we make the wrong recommendation and there's a problem, we'll be hearing about it over and over. So we try to be very diligent in that
Absolutely.
regard.
Well, once again, welcome aboard, and thank you very much. I appreciate it. Ms. Eaton, you also have a question for?
Yes.
Sorry.
And I also apologize for having no clue as to who you are. Okay?
No, it's fine.
So,
it's fine.
I just want to put that out there first. So, based on the questions that my colleague, Mr. Diaz, asked, would you recommend, being the expert in this area, a 3 to 5 year time frame so as to allow for all those variables that are unforeseen? And also, is there any way that we can all receive these lists knowing that these people have been fully vetted? Because there's a lot, as Mr. Diaz even stated, that we don't know. When the lists come to us, it comes to us, and we're sitting here looking at it going, okay, the people that are hired that know this, they've taken care of all that, and these are their recommendations. They're asking us to just pick one. So we at least I know I'd feel better knowing I'm picking one based on your recommendation because you're the expert.
Yes, ma'am. So my name is Helen Keaton. I'm the new Executive Director of Facilities Planning. Nice meeting you. So my background is in construction. That's what I've done for about almost 40 years. So, but yes, my recommendation would be 3 years. Obviously, it also depends on how many projects you have and what the need of the district is. So if you don't have large building projects coming up, potentially it could push out a little bit. But I would think 3 years is good. When we go through and you actually see these lists in your packet with all these names, all the numbers that you see, each separate one is something we've discussed internally. So there's a rubric. We talk about the item. We talk about the performance of the architect, and we score them based on that. So when you see this and you see the summary, it is the culmination of several hours of a meeting discussing these qualifications. So we take it very seriously. We will make a recommendation. And then, of course, if you have questions at that time, we're happy to answer why we potentially made the recommendation that we did. So we're always here to let you know why we did it. So we're here to support you. Yes, ma'am. We're both ways. Goes both ways.
I think that's it.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Keaton. We'll move on to item, is there a motion for item F?
I move we approve item F.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. Let us have a roll call vote. Ms. Eaton?
Aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. King?
Shatanya King, aye.
Mr. Diaz?
Rafael Diaz, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Okay. Now we'll move on to item H. Dr. Ball, you said that we're going to have somebody to read our proclamation?
Yes, Ms. Robinson will be reading that for us.
While she's coming up, I move to approve.
I love it. Good evening, everyone.
There is, I second it.
Am I reading or am I waiting for you?
Okay, let's do this the right way. Is there a motion for item H?
I move to approve.
I'll second it. All in favor, excuse me, we'll do the roll call. Mr. Diaz?
Rafael Diaz, aye.
Okay, Ms. King?
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Eaton?
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Now, I'm sorry, you can go ahead and read it, Ms. Robinson.
Thank you all very much. Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Social workers are essential. So Social Workers Month 2021 Proclamation. Social workers are essential. Whereas the social worker profession for decades has been dedicated to improving human well-being and enhancing the basic needs of all people, especially the most vulnerable among us. Whereas this year, Social Worker Month theme, Social Workers are Essential, embodies the heroic contributions of the social worker profession to our nation, including the work social workers have done to heal our nation during these times of pandemic, racial unrest, economic uncertainty, and political divisiveness. Whereas social workers have always been present in times of crisis, helping people overcome issues such as death and grief, and helping people and the communities recover from natural disasters such as fires, hurricanes, and earthquakes. Whereas social workers have helped this nation live up to its values by successfully advocating for equal rights for all people, no matter their race, sexual identity, gender expression, culture, or religion. Whereas the social worker profession is one of the fastest growing professions in the United States, with nearly 800,000 people expected to be employed as a social worker by 2028. Whereas social workers work in all parts of our society to empower people to live in their fullest potential. Whereas social workers have worked with families and schools throughout the pandemic to ensure students reach their fullest academic and personal potential. Whereas social workers play a crucial role in our nation's health care system and have played a key role in this nation's response to COVID-19 and helping individuals, families, and community cope with the epidemic. Whereas social workers for generations have advocated for positive changes that have made our society a better place to live, including urging policymakers to adopt a minimum wage, improve workplace safety, and enact social safety net programs that help ameliorate hunger, homelessness, and poverty. Whereas social workers are one of the largest groups of mental health care providers in the United States and work daily to help people, whether in person or remotely, overcome substance use disorders and mental illness such as depression and anxiety. Whereas social workers will continue to stand ready to assist our nation in overcoming present and future challenges, including pushing for racial equality, ending gun violence, improving health care and mental health care for all, and urging lawmakers to adopt immigration reforms. Now, therefore, in recognition of the numerous contributions made by America's social worker, I, Renee Pichal, proclaim the month of March 2021 as National Social Worker Month and call upon all citizens to join the National Association of Social Workers and Judson ISD in celebration and support of the social work profession. Thank you. And I do want to say that our social workers have been phenomenal. I cannot thank them enough for everything that they have done for this community, being out there in the pandemic, being out there in the fires, and just the snowstorm, just incredible. They never stopped working. So thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts.
Thank you. Okay. Let us move to item M that was pulled by, I believe, Ms. Rodriguez? Ms. Eaton. Turn on your microphone.
I'm just trying to understand what it is.
It's a digital curriculum program that we are going to be able to use. Our counselors could use it. Even a teacher could use it for bullying prevention, very similar to character type traits. So it's a curriculum that guidance counselors, social workers, teachers could use to work with our students.
Is it across all age groups, all school levels?
I'm going to have to ask Ms. Robinson is saying yes, it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Is there a motion for item M?
I make a motion that we accept item M as it stands.
I'll second that. We'll start with you, Ms. Eaton.
Deborah Eaton, yes, I approve.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. King?
Shatanya King, aye.
Mr. Diaz?
Rafael Diaz, aye.
Renee Pichel, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Item N, consider and take action regarding approving the innovation courses for 2021-2022 school year. Was that you, Ms. Rodriguez?
That was me, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Mr. Diaz, go right ahead, sir.
Thank you. So these are wonderful courses, and I just wanted to take the opportunity to kind of elevate the conversation about innovative courses. So we've all been talking about how to better engage students, how do we build a stronger district by diversifying our offerings, by figuring out, in the micro communities or in the greater macro community, what is it that we need to start implementing into our district, and what makes sense for the students, what do they want, how do we kind of get ahead of the game. So the innovative courses provides a mechanism to do that, right? I really just wanted to hear from you, Dr. Ball, and maybe it's for our own learning because I'm not completely sure about it, and maybe everybody else is. How do we select the innovative courses? Like, what's that process? Is it driven by student appeal? Is campuses are involved? I'm sure that the answer is all yes to that. However, just give us some more insight. That way, when we start talking about or planning on the next edition of Judson, you know, we have an idea of what the levers are.
Right. So most of them have to do with the career pathways, and the career pathways of interest is driven by several things. First of all, the need. The need, we certainly want to set up students for where there's going to be a need for employment, for jobs, career and college readiness. Then the other component that is looked at is student interest. The other component that is looked at is in regards to the degree plan that the student or students are selected. Each one of our high schools has a specialty. For example, veterans, of course, the specialty, one of the specialties, they have many, but one of them could be cosmetology, so the courses there would be geared to that area. Then the CATE program is very robust at Judson High School. The CATE, Career Technology program, and that alone is a program that a lot of individuals don't know that comes with so many other components to it, whether it's the agriculture component, the mechanics component, I can't think of the name, but the class that teaches the flowers, I can't think of it, the horticultural. So lots of different components. So it's based on, of course, the degree plan that we are offering, the specialty program, the interest from the students. Then, of course, later on, we move into looking at all the details of making sure we have a teacher that can teach that class, getting it approved by TEA as one of the course offerings. So I don't know if that kind of helps a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I wanted to have the conversation not only just for our understanding, but anybody out there who's listening or who's thinking about it, but more so to bring it to the table as a lever to pull, right? And the following isn't a judgment statement, is really me trying to understand something. So let me frame this. So in post-secondary, the conversation has been had on how do we make sure that degree plans or bachelors make sense for students, right? That they're not investing in something that won't really yield a return on their investment. So we often know that sometimes there are some degrees that are just very tough to leverage into a career. Is there that, do we talk about that when we think about innovative courses to ensure that if we offer something, it can be parlayed into a greater career track? And the only reason why I bring that up is I want to make sure that, like, it's a very delicate balance, right? We want to engage students, but we don't want them to somebody help me out.
I think we don't want to discourage them, but at the same time give them false information.
Yep. So we don't want them to over-rely on something and then figure out it's not putting enough food on the table, right? So what are those conversations like, and how do we make sure that if, for the example of the horticulture program, we pair that with, now these are the mechanisms, or these are the skills you'll need to start your own business to make sure that you can thrive, right, or scale appropriately.
We're very lucky to have counselors that really go in depth with that and do an amazing job of not only talking about job possibilities, but looking at possible salaries and giving students that information of what could the possible things do that you could do with this type of degree, what are some salary ranges, what is it realistically, is there a need for these types of jobs? So our counselors do those types of things. One of the things that, because our executive director, Monica Garcia, that oversees the counselors, she does a tremendous job in really working hard to make sure that we allow our counselors to be in the classroom as much as possible, sharing that information, working with individual students. But I also want to ask Ms. Robinson if I'm leaving anything out that she might want to add to it. I want to make sure you have all the information.
So actually, the process starts with a student survey. And so part of the student survey is more of an interest survey of, okay, what is it that you envision yourself doing in high school? And based on that vision, then that's how we actually formulate a 4-year plan for each student. And so based on what they're telling us their interests are, then that's where we start, okay, let's look at your 4-year plan and let's plan it out so that we can see exactly what it is that you need according to the program of study. Now, we have to go according to what TEA sets as this is the pathway for the program of study, and so therefore we kind of schedule the courses within the 4 years so that at the end the kids can ensure that either they're getting into a 4-year college, a 2-year college, or a technical school, depending on where it is. On the Kate side, we try to work on certifications. How many kids can we actually get certified at the end of the year? So we actually formulate a 4-year plan for each one of them. As far as the courses are concerned, based on the student survey, and then we actually go out and we ask the teachers, what is it that you think that we can do, knowing what is out there that the state is allowing us to do, we can go ahead and incorporate into our curriculum. And so those are where some of these courses are popping out. One of the great interests that we're actually having right now is in firefighting. So we're actually opening up a firefighters academy at Judson High. So that is our plan. We're going to start slow and low, but there seems to be a lot of interest out there with our kiddos. And so we actually have already identified an individual that is going to take that program and hopefully, help us move it forward. But it all starts with an interest survey from the kids. The kids basically tell us, this is what I'm interested in, and then we try to make it happen for them.
That's great. Thank you
Ms.
so much.
Robinson?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm sorry. Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
What grade do we do that question, the initial questionnaire for the students?
We start at 6th grade, where they start actually looking at that particular interest so that they can actually start looking, and mainly because at the middle school we start offering high school courses, and so we want to try to prepare our kids, those that are ready to start high school courses, we try to get them ready in the middle school. So our interest survey actually start at 6th grade.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
No, I was just going to comment, Ms. Robinson. No, thank you so much, because you made a great point, which is how do we parlay the current infrastructure, that current course, into a stackable credential, into something that goes into post-secondary that doesn't just necessarily mean a 4-year university.
Exactly.
It's a 2-year college, it's a credentialing program, it's a cert program, but making sure that even if we shorten the academic journey for a student, that doesn't mean it gets weakened. It can be strong, just shorter, to get them into a good paying job and or post-secondary, whichever comes first, combination thereof. So that's my only comment.
And just to let you know that we work really hard to try to get the kids to take the AP courses and get them more prepared for college. But if the student decides not to take the AP courses, we go the dual credit route. The kids can actually earn 42 credits and come out of our high school with 42 credits. That's a lot of money saved as far as the parents are concerned. And that's what we call core complete. And we're working on that too.
I appreciate the fact that this is a route that our high school kids can take so that they don't have to go and those technical schools that they go to, they're not going to be guaranteed that they're going to get a job, and then they have a loan to pay back, So I'm really glad that we're able to do this at this level, and they can still get the cert. Thank you, Ms. Robinson. So is there a motion for item N, please?
I motion to approve item N, taking action regarding the approval of the innovative courses for 2021-2022 school year.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. We'll start with Mr. Diaz.
Rafael Diaz, aye.
Ms. King.
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Canoyer.
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Eaton?
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Motion passes unanimously. We are now moving into the discussion consideration of action items 5. Consider and take possible action regarding the approval of board training options. Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am. Several months ago, the board had asked for presentations from 3 systems, one of them being Region 20, Leadership ISD, and then also TASB. So each one of them provided a Zoom with some information. I then, we compiled a sheet that you have attached to give you some additional information. So at this time, just wanted to either A, see if the board was ready to make a decision, see if the board wanted me to go back and gather more information, or really just hear from the board in regards to what direction you would like for me to move in to provide more direction.
Okay, thank you. We can do a round robin, or anybody that wants to go ahead and just jump out there and say what they think. We can do it either way. Anybody want to volunteer first?
Yes, ma'am. All 3 of these individuals, when I say individuals, organizations, could provide great training. Some of the things that I asked, just out of curiosity, of course, was the cost. I looked at some of the things that they could offer, who they've offered it to, just in case the board asked me to reach out to some individuals, maybe to get references. So those are just a little recap of some of the information that I gathered about the training. All of them are a little bit different, but then at the same time, the same underlying component that each one of them could provide, the team of 8 training. That is the one that I would think is in the most immediate future for the board to get that part done. So just wanted to provide that additional information.
Well, if nobody says anything, I'll start. I think I'm leaning more toward TASB, Dr. Ball. We know those people. We've had experience with them before in our retreats, team of 8 trainings. They have an excellent XG program that many of the other school districts have already used. So it looks to me, and then the cost, of course, is the most reasonable to me. I'm leaning toward TASB.
So I'll chime in since I started this party. So I'm leaning toward Leadership ISD, and I'll tell you it's because they had a really interesting model where they were doing the equity audits and going beyond just the conventional training that I've seen. I think especially when the backdrop of our conversations and our service is with a very diverse community, both socioeconomically, gender and age, age as well, but gender and race and identity overall. They had a very attractive model which blended and synthesized some of the critical conversations that we should have in a governance structure. So that's my position. And I understand the cost. However, we've saved some cash on conferences, or I believe we have. This, I may be stand corrected if so. But I think for that quality and that intense, I think the structure is, or my goal is for this to be a very intense approach. That way we set the foundation for our own service into this system. That's where I would lean toward.
I agree with Mr. Diaz. I was most impressed by the Leadership ISD presentation and felt like, whereas I think TASB and Region 20 have been very reliable, I think what I'm looking for in the next level of our training to bring us together as a board is the next step. So looking at racial equity, looking at budget and how do we more effectively manage that process, And that was what made that attractive to me. And I also understand the cost. I think that I would push to write that into our next budget because I think it would be feasible to maybe wait until we are a full board of 8 and then engage in that training as a new board.
That's a good idea. Thanks, Ms. Rodriguez. Anybody else?
The leadership caught my eye as well because they have information in regards to budget and learning about that, and that will be very crucial for us and also for new board members that come on board. And so I think that will be very important and very important aspect to have in regards to training.
Okay. And I can be swayed.
And I'll just say this real quick. I think for me, my decision and my support of that isn't reflective of how I feel about the other organizations. Done a great job. But Mrs. Rodriguez made a great point, which is if we are looking to take it even deeper to the
next level, yes, that's I agree.
Yeah, so that's very attractive because TASB is a wonderful resource. They're always there. I don't see us not getting support from them to some extent. However, for us to really peel the onion back and check the layers, both good and bad, I think they're better qualified for it.
Okay. Ms. Canoyer?
Thank you. I agree. I think that this is a board that's ready to pull together more tightly than boards have in the past and really look at a deeper dive into how we can be as effective as possible, working with our superintendent to set goals, to look at how are we as a board truly focusing on the needs of the students. In this day and age, what we used to do is not good enough anymore. We know we took those first steps with our racial equity statement, and I think we need to continue with that work. And it appears to me that leadership is the avenue to really customize a plan for us in those areas. I do like the idea that Ms. Rodriguez spoke of budgeting that. We have saved a lot of money this year, but that we will continue next year. I'm not sure we won't be virtual again next year for everything. But I also would recommend then that we go ahead and schedule a time for a board retreat so that we can talk about some of those issues that came up in our closed session last month. And we can do that without having to contract anyone to come in.
Ms. Eaton?
I just kind of want to echo my colleagues, and also as Ms. King brought up about new members. None of us are new, and they have the new member training in our conference that we attend, and that lays that foundation. So, as Mr. Diaz said, we need to step ours up to the next level, and I think they will offer us that opportunity. So I look forward to it.
Dr. Ball, it looks like we're unanimous on Leadership ISD. Yes, you did. I'm all for going to the next level. Absolutely.
Well, I think we have a team that's ready to work together and
Yes,
do that
ma'am.
difficult conversations and work together.
That's correct. And just to let you guys know, the current? All right, current scores at halftime? No. Halftime's over with? Fourth quarter, 35, Judson 42, Reagan 35, for those of y'all that are interested. I am.
That's our girls' basketball. But everybody listening might not.
May not know. All right, thank you very much, Dr. Ball. So Leadership ISD it is.
The only thing that we do need to do, though, before next year is the team of 8 training.
Yes, we do.
So how would y'all like for me to proceed with that? we could do several things. We could have the Team of 8 training just with Region 20. Do you want me to contact Leadership ISD and have that now as a separate component? How would the board like for me to do that? Because we do need to get that done as soon as possible.
What is the deadline for doing that Team of 8?
If I remember correctly, it's at the end of, oh, Betty, remind me.
It's actually for this year that we're in right now, it's before the election. We're supposed to have.
Oh, because I was just going to say, can we wait till after the election?
And then we'll have to have it again with the new board
Right.
by the next calendar year, okay, or next school year.
It'll be for the following calendar year.
So is that something we could kind of work out with the retreat where we do?
Absolutely.
And that could be part of,
Yes.
that could count as our team of 8 if we have somebody to help maybe facilitate that?
Absolutely, because I selected some days that I wanted to run past
Okay.
you to see if everybody was available.
Okay.
Either March the 20th, March the 27th, or April the 3rd, if any of those would work for anybody. If not, I could always go back to the drawing board to pick more different dates. Yes, so one day could be March the 20th, or March the 27th, or April the 3rd. Does anybody have a preference to say, stay away from any of those days?
I do not.
The only thing is, April 3rd would be Easter weekend,
Oh,
in case that's a problem for
Yes,
anyone.
good point.
Oh, okay.
Good point.
But
Okay.
I
I'm
got no life.
So March 27th, I can start planning for March 27th,
Let's do that.
okay?
Is everybody good? March 27th. 27th,
Yes, ma'am.
And that
Yes.
would be like a
We'll do
an
the-
8 to noon or 8 all day?
No, let's see, we could do 8 to noon,
Okay.
but it'll give me some time to work out to get the team of 8 and then the other component done also.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
Okay, 27. Let us move on to item B, consider and take possible action regarding approval of the resolution nominating Judson ISD Superintendent Dr. Jeanette Ball for Texas Association of School Board Superintendent of the Year 2021.
I'm sorry, are we not taking action on that item? 5A?
We will be, maybe this is in the wrong place.
No, I don't know if we really need to take formal action yet until I bring back some more information as to what the courses will look like.
Okay.
I don't have all the details, but now that I know that the board wants me to move forward with Leadership ISD, I'll start to work out some, I guess the action could be also just be that you want me to move forward with working on that if you'd like.
I move we ask our superintendent to move forward with coordinating training for the board.
I second it.
With Leadership ISD.
So far, at this time, however, we're going to table item B. Is that what you're saying, Dr. Ball?
Well, that's certainly
Or are
up.
we just going to?
No, we're voting.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we were done with A.
I just made a motion to ask Dr. Ball to move forward with Leadership ISD.
Starting with Mr. Diaz, let us take a vote, roll call vote.
Rafael Diaz, aye.
Ms. King,
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Canoyer,
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez,
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Eaton,
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Dr. Ball, please move forward with Leadership ISD.
Yes, ma'am, I will. Yes, ma'am, I will.
Want to
Okay,
make
now-
sure Betty got her motion.
Okay, and so for item B, let's go back there. Are you saying that, Ms. Holmes, we do not need to take action on item B?
No, I was asking about action.
Oh, item A, okay.
I was asking about A.
So going back to item B then, is there a motion for item B?
A motion to approve and take action, the item regarding the approval of the resolution nominating Judson ISD Superintendent Dr. Jeanette Ball
Mhm.
for the TASB Superintendent of the Year.
Is there any discussion that anybody wants to have?
Can I second it?
Yes, ma'am, you may second it.
I just have a quick question. I know that when I've seen this award given, there's like a regional superintendent, and then those compete for the statewide award. Is that this?
Mhm.
Okay.
Let me just speak on this a little bit. I know I'm going to be preaching to the choir, but as sort of as an outsider that's seen a lot of superintendents that can work, it's been really nice to see a superintendent who kind of strives for both the academic progress of the district as well as taking care of the culture. It's no small feat, right? I mean, having to move a district in the right direction is tough enough, especially with the obstacles that we've had over the past year. And we can tout a few things. We have a really strong financial position. Through Dr. Ball's innovation, we started that PK4 program, PK3 program. She wants to take care of babies. I mean, but all of that really geared toward ensuring that we can retain and recruit more students so that we have a healthy system. So those are really great, especially when you consider the fact that we're the only district to have grown. So that in itself is a tremendous task when we know that we have multiple factors that cause some leakage, which always sounds funny when I say leakage. When we have some student loss. So that's incredibly important. But the other just thing to note is that, and I hope everybody agrees with this, this industry is really difficult to navigate for a strong female superintendent, especially when you consider the fact that when you go to a conference, it's overwhelmingly male-dominated, except for our educators. We have a disproportionate amount of female educators. So to see that, and knowing that it's tougher, I think it is a feat within itself. However, when you add the tremendous growth that we've seen, all of the things that are positive, and during the first budget process, we saw Dr. Ball talk to us about, we took care of, I don't want to say the normal stuff, but we took care of what we had to take care of. However, now she wants to move us into this destination district mindset is really special. So I think, if anything else, her performance demands this. So I think we all feel the same way, but I want to support that and make sure that we can ensure that we, get her the infrastructure support that she needs, but more so because it's the right thing to do, because some of the ideas that she has should be replicated in other districts, because that's the right thing to do. So I want to just, support Dr. Ball in that.
Here.
Thank you.
Is there a motion for item B? We have the motion. We'll start with Mr. Diaz.
Rafael Diaz, aye.
Ms. King.
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Canoyer.
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez.
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Eaton.
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all
I'm
very much.
very proud to be a part of this team of people. I'm very proud of this district and your staff, Dr. Ball. I'm very proud of you and how you have moved us into another level, another paradigm this district hasn't seen before. I'm very happy to be here. And there's no problem at all with a nomination for you for the Superintendent of the Year.
Thank you. I appreciate the support. It's a
Absolutely.
wonderful board.
I just want to note that I got through that without crying.
Noted.
It's okay. We will now go on into to item 6, discussion and reports. The others will be in closed session for HR. Item 6, discussion, superintendent's report. Dr. Ball?
The report that I have right now is this is so close. We are down to 31.8 seconds. So it is just so close. So right now the score is 46 to 48, and we're down by 2.
Okay.
So that's the report that I have, and goodness gracious. We do have the construction report. If anybody had any questions, Dr. Fields is always available to answer questions, but we do have somebody with us today from Raise Your Hand, Texas. Sophie Torres is here with us because this being a legislative year, there's always a lot going on, and I wanted the board to have some of that information. So, Sophie, if you don't mind coming up and sharing with the board, that we'd greatly appreciate it, and we thank you for being here with us.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the invite. I'm really happy to be here. I'm a native San Antonian, and so I'm a product of public schools, so I know how important public school is firsthand and how transformative it is, and seeing and being here early and listening to everything that's going on was just really great to
Hold on, Sophie. I'm so sorry to interrupt you.
Overtime.
Overtime. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
It's a big game, I know.
It's very big for us, Sophie.
Perfect. Thank you. So, I know it's a big game. It sounds like. Please stop me at any point.
Sophie, let me just remind you, make sure you speak into that microphone. So, yes.
Okay, I'll move it this way.
So that public can hear you.
Well, again, I want to thank Dr. Ball and Madam President and trustees for having me here. Once again, my name is Sophie Torres. I'm with Raise Your Hand Texas. It's an education nonpartisan nonprofit here in San Antonio, in Texas, and we support public education. And so I'm really happy to go through who Raise Your Hand is, go through a little bit of a legislative update of what's going on in Austin right now, and then also to tell you where Raise Your Hand is on our policy priorities. Betty will be passing out some information later that just kind of goes through what our policy priorities, and it also has some just great information regarding public perception, the poll that we do on education. So this is all the work that Raise Your Hand does. It's very intensive. So I am part of a team of 13 that deals with advocacy. We have 13 regional advocacy directors throughout the state. And our big goal is talking to school districts, administrators, educators, parents, to find out what are the nitty-gritty of education, what's going on, and how can we impact it on the statewide level. We also have some programs that I'm going to go through a few of them, our research that we do, storytelling and policy as well. So we're in all different arms of public education to try to advance and elevate the voice of districts right now throughout Texas. One of the programs that I mentioned is Raising Texas Teachers. We know how pipeline and those teachers are so important to the curriculum in schools. So we've started an initiative to grow the pool of high quality applicants entering through the Charles Butt Scholarship for aspiring teachers. One thing I did forget to mention, so Charles Butt is our sole founder and funder for Raise Your Hand. So we know here in San Antonio, it's just such a great advocate for us with HEB as well. So here in San Antonio, for Raising Texas Teachers, we have 2 universities that provide a $10,000 scholarship per year for students who decide to go into the education field and become teachers. So once they graduate, they apply to be a Charles Butt Scholar. They go to Our Lady of the Lake or Trinity University, they get selected, and it's an incentive for them to keep teaching and building that workforce pipeline. It also provides them with additional opportunities for personal development throughout their education process as well. The next one we have is Raising Texas Leaders, the leadership training for principals and campus leaderships that sends them to Harvard, all expenses paid for a week. We have an alumni program of over 1,300 as well. We do an annual symposium. It's an ongoing professional development and support. And I do want to highlight 2 specific Judson ISD principals that have gone through this program. Martin Silverman from Salinas Elementary School and Jesse Hernandez from Jefferson High School as well have gone through. So we're really proud of them and what they've accomplished. Raising Blended Learners is another one of our programs that blends the different ways of learning. We've had 35,000 students already go through the program. We're adding 20 new school districts. We had put a little pause on it because of COVID last year, just to kind of be able to help any districts on what their needs are. But we're hoping to elevate that and accelerate some districts. During today's Public Education Committee meeting, Commissioner Morath did highlight blended learning, as those districts were able to pivot a lot faster, being able to help students more at the beginning of COVID back in March of last year. One other thing that we do candidate forums solely based on education. This past year, we've hosted over 60. They're nonpartisan, as I mentioned, education focused with community partners throughout the state. So we do this able to provide that educator voice for many folks. A lot of times when there's a candidate forum, you get lucky if you have one question related to education. This is a whole hour asking those legislators where they stand on education. That's so important. So coming back to the legislature, we think every session is a public education session. House Bill 3 from the 86 really provided a lot of great groundwork for Texas, but Texas still ranks in the bottom 10 in the nation when it comes to per student funding. So even with the investing of the $530 average per student, we're still lagging either 3,000 to 4,000 behind the national average. So we still have a long ways to go in that way. Some of the numbers that you see, you can tell this is for a 2-year session. The H Bill 3 did provide some housing for some tax relief in addition to tax funding, so that compression of the tax relief is going to be interesting to see over the next couple of years how that affects it. Also looking at commercial property value during the last year and a half, if it's going to go up and down, and how that's going to affect property value as well. There's a good chance that it's going to affect district growth as well, and just knowing how that is and what's going to happen. The one thing to note, I know pre-K and full day pre-K is a big for schools, and really exciting that this happened in House Bill 3, but also the student enrollment decline impacted by pre-K over the last year. Many students not coming, and that's being where the most students are gone missing, quote unquote, that the commissioner keeps talking about. So the realities of COVID, I think we've all seen them here. You guys have experienced them. There's on the state level, the expected state revenues are much lower than were expected. And so that's going to change the trajectory of HB 3 of where it stands. Right now, there's still 44% of students in Texas doing remote schooling. So that's still a really large percentage depending on where you are in the state. A lot of the smaller rural districts are completely in person versus other districts that are not. So that learning loss is going to vary greatly between district and region. Some students are looking to 7 months. I personally think it's going to be closer to a year, depending on a lot of students, of that learning loss. How do we get them? The issues have really exacerbated also the inequality of broadband and technology. In rural areas of Texas, they don't even have broadband. There's no access. So at the very beginning, if you don't have access, how can you do remote learning if that's not an option? I know here in suburban and urban areas, the same thing. If you have multiple students and multiple children in one household, limited devices, bandwidth issues. I live with my husband, we have bandwidth issues, and it's just the two of us. So I can only imagine in a household with 1 or 2 students with a parent working from home as well, that definitely adds issues of how the student is going to be able to provide and be able to do their learning. So the current budget situation, it looks a little bit better than I think was originally anticipated, but tough decisions are definitely going to be made in the legislature.
Sophie, I
Oh, yeah.
apologize, Madam President, I apologize. Dr. Beals, do you have an announcement to make?
No, not yet, but we're up by 31 seconds left. They threw the ball in, we stole it, so all we have to do is hold the ball.
Okay, so I'm a nervous wreck, so sorry, Sophie.
It is okay. So as I mentioned, the current budget situation, some tough decisions are definitely going to be made. The state is short $1 billion in state revenue, but when you think about the growth of the Texas population that continues to grow every day, there's an estimated 1,000 people that are coming to the state, and those demands continue to grow on our infrastructure, on health and human services. There's still that $1 billion gap going on. The same amount of revenue does not mean the state is in a good shape. It just means that there's going to be cuts in certain services as well. If the economy doesn't pick up, it's expected to grow by. If the economy picks up, it's expected to grow by 6% only. The last couple of years, we've had double digits, up to 12 to 15% of growth. So even if 6% does sound better than what it was originally estimated, it's still going to be a little short given how big of a growth we've had the last couple of years. The positive part is that in the Economic Stabilization Fund, so the rainy day fund, we do have $11.6 billion available. So there is money there. And I'll go through some more of, there's money there to fund public education. I know that's a conversation that generally happens every year, where we need more money, we need money for public education, but this is just some quick back of the envelope math when it comes to funds. There is the federal funding from the CARES Act that was $1.3 billion. There's $5 billion that was from the federal funding back in December. There is the delayed payment for the school foundation program, and then the rainy day fund. So there is money there to fully fund HB3 plus all the programs. So I know one of the conversations I've heard from school districts and administrators is this hold harmless, the funding from TEA that has not been released for the spring semester. And it's still unknown. Representative Dutton, who is the chair of House Public Education Committee, did an interview with the Texas Tribune last week, and he made the comment that he believes legislation may be appropriate in this legislative session to get hold harmless funds to districts and get them what they need. It's uncertain if that's really going to happen because we're still looking at the process of the legislative process. It still won't be until much later May when you guys need a decision now, especially as you're making budget. The conversation that the commissioner keeps saying is we need districts to find missing students. So it's all those students in your district that I know you have a talented team that go out and do home visits every single day. So continuously.
They've actually shared, Ms. Robinson just shared this information at the meeting. How many home visits did you say have been made over how many? Do you remember? 1,080? Just the social workers making those home visits. So lots of home visits are being made.
Absolutely, and that is the continuous story that I've heard. There's one principal in a high school that he says he spends one day a week going to do home visits himself, in addition to the ones his staff does. So the notion that there's these missing students and the districts aren't doing enough, and that if they get money, they're incentivized not to find their children, I think is such a discouragement to everything that districts have been doing the last year continuously coming up to step up in certain situations. So that's really frustrating personally for me. When it comes to the federal funding aspect of public education, there has been close to $20 billion in public dollars in general in federal money given to public education. So there was a $1.3 billion from the CARES ERSA funding back in May. Unfortunately, that was a wash for districts. They didn't receive any new money. That fund was supplanted into the Texas budget, and so it was a wash for districts. And the $5.5 billion that I previously commented on. That was passed on the federal level in December 2020, and we don't know where it is. We've been asking people, we've been trying to find out where is this money, our district's going to get it, because we know that you're doing a lot and could really use that. The reimbursement was only 75% back in May of last year for COVID expenses, and I know those COVID expenses have just gone up this last year. So we're asking, and we would love to know, what would you use those funds for here? I know a lot of schools are doing full-day pre-K, acceleration tutoring, additional programming, things like that to catch students up. But when you see, and I have a great fact sheet I can share with you guys later as well, when you see the state of Louisiana get $1,500 per pupil.
Sorry, one more time, and this will be the last time, Sophie. Dr. Fee. Sophie, we really do apologize. It's just that we're so proud of this team, and they've done so well. So please
That's
go on and no more
amazing.
interruptions.
No way.
would be there right now.
Oh, I completely understand. So we want to know, where that funding is and making sure that it gets given and at least a portion to districts that need it and not supplanted into the Texas budget or not used for other things like the weatherization of our grid or of our power grid, because districts need this. Just last week, the American Rescue Plan, which is the newest round of COVID funding, passed the House. It's pending Senate approval, but in there was a $12 billion allocation for just public education. If we add up all of this is $20 billion, as I mentioned, for public education from the federal government, that districts here in Texas haven't received a penny. So just to put that into perspective, when you see other states that are our neighbors using $1,500 additional per pupil dollars can make such a difference here at Judson and throughout the state. So as far as raise your hand, where do we stand on a lot of this? Yes, absolutely.
Is there something we can do to help with that?
We want to hear your voice. We want to know what are you going to use the money for? What would you use it? Talking to Commissioner Morath, talking to our local elected officials, and getting that word out, because that was the other thing that we recently learned. Not a lot of people know that that districts were supposed to get money, and it never happened. The commissioner himself has said that TEA gave the money, the 1.3. I'll go back. The 1.3 that was in May. He has said that's what the schools got for hold harmless, but it was kind of I don't want to say a bait and switch, but it was kind of a shadow, because his own comptroller has said that it was used to supplant the budget. So the districts did not receive new additional funding. And that's going to be really important. It would help to reduce the cost of the foundation school program. So it wasn't an additional funding or influx of cash, unfortunately, for districts. So we want to, like I said, Raise Your Hand is really starting a campaign on the federal funding of where, on the $5.5 billion, the ones that were passed in December, because as I mentioned, we don't know where that is or what's going to happen. In the legislature, under House Appropriations, they did create a select committee to talk about this. As far as who's on that committee, local representative Ina Mijares is. So we're hoping that using our voice here in San Antonio and talking to Representative Mijares and those members of that committee plus House Appropriations just can kind of get the conversation going. I think that's really important of how can we help. As Mr. Houston here in this slide says, he's having to cope with 30 to 40 teachers being out, and the cost of substitutes are expensive and adds up. And it's not just the cost of substitutes, it's if you're lucky enough to find them as well. I think that's another thing that people don't think about as well. It's if you're lucky enough to pay, but if you can find them, that's a whole other issue as well as far as the scarcity and availability. So as I mentioned, we at Raise Your Hand, we're here to stand for the future and to stand for all. Through equity and innovation, we think there's a world-class school system here in Texas that can really transform the youth of Texas and Texas as a whole. These are our 6 legislative kind of big priorities. Money matters, public dollars must remain in public school, virtual education be of the highest quality, growth and performance should be measured fairly, of course. Communities deserve an equal playing field, and teachers make all of the difference. As I mentioned, schools need our support, especially when it comes to COVID, and cost has been more, not less. I think originally at the influx when students were in campus or on campus, people just thought, you're not spending money on anyone. But when you come to think of the cleaning, the monitoring, the hiring staff, the child care, providing those meals on the go for families at the beginning, having that staff, the additional one-time use disposable items that you need in your classes now, those add up. So if you're looking at an average of $485 per student to provide COVID-19 related resources, and because of HB3 added $530 per student, but that was for teacher raises, pre-K, early literacy. It didn't take the impact of COVID. Schools are still spending a lot of money per student for COVID related expenses just right now, and continue to have. We think that's smart investment for the future. All of these things had some portion in HB3, especially that pre-K, but looking now into broadband access and technology is really important. Where we could really use some federal stimulus dollars is to provide and expand those essential programs to our students and not supplant the funding, the state budget, as previously mentioned. 1.8 million students do not have access to high-speed internet when you think of it. And that is high-speed internet not through a phone, but actually through a computer. I know a lot of students have been working on their phone, and I have problems typing out an email sometimes, so I can only imagine how challenging it is to write a 2 to 3 page paper using a cell phone. And that is in relation to technology and access as well. College enrollment as well over the last year is down as well. So how do we ensure that students enroll and thrive in post-secondary education as we continue forward, I think is something we all have to think about as we kind of move. So money matters in education. The last big budget cut was a decade ago, and we're still seeing the ramifications of those budget cuts 10 years later. In 2011 is when there was a $5.4 billion in cuts to just education alone. So as you can see, the math and reading scores since that point have trended down. That's only going to be exacerbated in the next slide that you'll see as far as COVID. A lot of the things that happened in HB3 were basically started a decade ago. It was the pre-K grants, the teacher allotment incentives, and technology funding. So if we could have kept that money a decade ago, I can only imagine where we would be now. And so this is a whole generation that was affected by those budget cuts. HB3 was great, but as I mentioned, Texas is still below the national average and is in the bottom 10%, bottom 10. So as far as our legislative priority, we do want to protect everything that House Bill 3 in the last session provided. We want to ensure that federal dollars that are used to increase public education funding, and we want to continue to invest in our students and address issues of quality, equity, and long-term sustainability with the goal of reaching at least the national average per student funding. Texas prides itself as being number one, open for business and continuously being open. We need to be open and accessible for our students as well, consistently. As I mentioned, we want dollars to remain in public schools, and their idea of vouchers was taken off the table last legislative session to pass the school funding bill, but there's constantly the conversation of vouchers that I know is a conversation that happens every time. Raise Your Hand does not support any form of vouchers. This includes special education or virtual. Public funding must go towards making our public schools better. So these are just some different types of vouchers that use are basically vouchers. It's traditional vouchers, it's an education savings account, tax credit scholarships, virtual vouchers as well, that all divert funds from public schools. So as far as our policy recommendation from Raise Your Hand, we just want the quality school choice and innovative program within the public school system. Like you guys were talking about as far as the pathways and providing students with choice, that's really important, and blended learning that fit the district's needs and wants. We oppose any form of taxpayer subsidy for schools or vendors that are basically are a fancy word for voucher or a tax credit in that sense. Sorry. Virtual education, I think, is one of those things that districts are really exploring right now as far as how to create their own virtual high school or virtual campuses. And I definitely see how it works for some students, and it's very powerful. However, as you can see here, the vast majority of students that were participating in virtual education, this was back in 2019, so before COVID, were attending a campus that had a rating of a C or lower on the A through F system. We know that rating doesn't tell the entire story. However, if we're going to be comparing apples to oranges, as we constantly are, or apples to apples, using the system it's something that we have available at the moment. So 16,000 students were enrolled in virtual schools before COVID. And while virtual campuses are providing a quality education for some students, it really is approached by a private vendor. The only one that has an in-district virtual program is the first one, iUniversity Prep with Grapevine Colleyville, ISD. And they trained their own teachers and provided this training to teachers, parents, and students prior to enrollment. So they set up basically a school within a school that was very effective, and not just a system that is ineffective for the vast majority of students. So where do we stand in full-time virtual? I think as the conversation continues to grow and as districts start exploring this, we want to make sure that low-performing full-time virtual schools are closed and oppose the expansion of vendor-based full-time virtual programs. As I mentioned, we want to make sure more of that districts have the ability to do that versus outside vendors. We want to improve the accountability and transparency of these current full-time virtual programs and focus policies on addressing the long-term solutions to the digital divide and the need for professional development for online teaching. You can't stick a teacher on a computer and expect them to teach the same way. It's not going to work for students nor the teacher themselves. I think we've seen that over the last 12 months, but more professional development and training is definitely needed to address the students and the teachers and how they use it. Student growth and performance, this is always a fun one of how is the A through F system rated, what goes into the accountability system, and what actually it does. And so schools do so much more than just give a test. And I think that's where the issue is, and the punitive A through F rating needs to be reconsidered. I will say that before starting this job, my understanding of public education was a 10,000-foot overview for half a second. I had no idea what the A through F system was, nor how intense it was. I just know that when I looked at houses on Zillow, it would come up at the bottom, but I had no idea what it meant. Knowing that what it means now, that it doesn't include local and state assessments, the job training, everything that a school really provides, and it's just what the state measures, is really upsetting, because it should measure what a school actually provides and not be punitive on the school and have the school assess themselves. That's why we're encouraged by Mary Gonzalez, who created a bill to create an interim commission to take a look at this. I'll talk a little bit more about it in a sec. But there is star fatigue. Commissioner Morath has made the rounds on the in Austin talking to the House Appropriations Committee, the Senate Finance, House Appropriations on Public Ed, and the House Public Ed Committee. One of the questions that legislators constantly ask him about is STAR. Why are you not canceling the STAR? Why does the STAR have to happen? And there's just STAR fatigue. So even before the STAR test was even before COVID-19, STAR has been widely unpopular with parents, educators, lawmakers, and students. We did a poll last year, and these are some results that we had from our poll, that just 37% of Texans expressed confidence in the state standardized testing to measure effectively how well students are learning. Of those, only 6% expressed confidence in high confidence. So there's a lot of Texans that are skeptical of STAR itself, and questions are being asked to TEA and the commissioner on a daily basis about this. Especially when you're looking at this, and which is the COVID slide. Mind you, our chart only goes up to September, so this is 6 months ago. I can only kind of imagine where those lines are kind of heading in now. But a debt is owed to our students to receive a quality education for all, and we're currently failing that. We're falling short for our students. This is just the projections of learning loss due to COVID is substantial, and we know that schools are doing the best they can to diagnose where students are academically through state and local assessments, and parents need to know where learning loss have occurred and where intervention is needed. That's all something I know that every principal and teacher knows where their student is at the moment. They can tell you how far behind they are, and where they need to be. So where do we stand on public schools accountability and assessment? We want to suspend the punitive A through F accountability system throughout the current pandemic. I know the commissioner and TEA has already said that there will be no A through F accountability, but unfortunately I know there's also still STAR happening, and how is that data and information going to be used or shared with the public is also a question that keeps coming up. We'd love to establish a statewide working group to create a new school accountability system that appropriately measures all factors for an effective solution. As I mentioned, Representative Mary Gonzalez, HB 1867, and that is creating a state commission on assessment that continues the conversation throughout the session and into the interim. So going into the next 2 years of continuing the conversation of how can we build a better accountability system that is localized and individualized to each school, because we know each school and school district varies greatly. We believe Texas communities deserve an equal and level playing field. I saw on your agenda you have some charter items and letters about charter schools coming up, and I just saw 5 today. I don't know if that means you've probably had more during your last board meeting.
Every month.
So that comes up continuously, and the number of charter schools continues to increase every single year. As you can see, enrollment in charters is projected to increase, not decrease. And so we do think that school districts and charter schools should be apples to apples. It's not apples to apples right now. It's apples to oranges. It's fruit, but it's not the same fruit. And student enrollment really is where that happens. So this is just a kind of innovative.
Sophie, would you go back to that last slide, please? Okay. Thank you.
Absolutely. So this is a really great innovative map. You can see as we go through time how big the growth is of charter schools, and where their concentrations are, obviously in urban areas. And they go from every 5 years to now every year. We started in 99 and kind of go to 97. But now we're looking at 2019 and how those colors change. And our policy and where we stand on this is we want to empower the SBOE or local school boards to have some sort of oversee charter expansion, especially when the charter school is not performing at the levels that are where they say they should. You know, if we're using the A through F system, we want to make sure that there aren't just continuing the funding advantage of charter schools and require the same enrollment and disciplinary rules in traditional public schools. That is one of the things that we definitely care about and would like to see how fast charters expand in this area. As you mentioned, if you're seeing that every single board meeting, that's a lot to take in.
They're blowing up.
There's a lot of growth in this area and throughout Perry County. So the last one that I just want to touch on is teachers making a difference. Public education is universal, and I think we can all think of that one teacher that made a difference in her life, whether it be positive or negative sometimes, but we can all think of that. The challenge is, though, every year teachers leave the field, and I think you see that a little bit more maybe right now with some folks retiring early, but nearly a third of teachers quit within the first 5 years of entering the field. That is a astounding stat when you think of the institutional knowledge that these people have, that they decide to leave the field. So at Raise Your Hand, we're trying to attract and retain a diverse selection of educators that really shares the demographics of the state, which is a really important factor in ensuring Texas has an equitable and effective public school system. Students want to be taught by people that look like them. It's so empowering for a student when they see someone that looks like them teaching them. So that is why we do the Charles Butt Scholarship, as I mentioned earlier. But one of the campaigns that we started is this Teachers Can movement. And it's really a movement to empower teachers and the professionals in it into the belief that teachers make a difference every day. I think we've definitely seen that over the last year. So during Teacher Appreciation Week this year, May 3rd through the 7th, we're going to be doing a lot of things and just celebrating teachers. And then also for World Teacher Day, which is October 5th. Last year for World Teacher Day, we got skylines throughout Texas to change all their lights to blue in support of teachers. And so that was really great. We also have 125 partnering businesses and other organizations that really believe in teachers and support them as well. So where do we stand on teacher workforce? We support programs and practices that are proven to recruit diverse candidates into the field. Research-based improvements to Texas teacher preparation programs that include enhanced clinical practice prior to certification and have that rigor that they need to fully be effective and be transparent in the accountability of the educator programs currently in the state. One thing I do want to leave with you behind is every week we do a newsletter called Across the Lawn. Our offices in Austin are literally across the lawn of the Texas Capitol. You can see the Capitol from our offices. And so every week we come out with a newsletter that's 5 things to know and 1 thing to do. You can sign up at www.raiseyourhandtexas.org/across-the-lawn. And it provides a really quick snapshot of what happened in the legislature that week, what you should look for in the coming week, and a fun activity to do, whether it's finding out who represents you in this committee or if you have any relation to those folks. And I think that is really just a great way to stay involved and stay informed of what's going on in Austin, especially when it's related to just public education, not everything else that happens in Austin during the legislative session, as it can be a little crazy. But I just want to say again, thank you so much for the invite. Thank you to Dr. Ball. I really appreciate it. And I am here to be a resource to you all. So if you have any questions, I'm more than happy to follow up via email, set up a phone call, a Zoom, present, get you in touch with some of our policy experts in Austin. Any way that I can help, I am here to serve Judson ISD and all you guys in any way I can.
Sophie?
Yes.
Would you leave your cards with Mrs.
Absolutely.
Holmes? Thank you.
Absolutely. I will do that.
And keep the fight for us, because though one day COVID will be over, the lingering effects of it will not be. We'll have students with larger gaps. That means we need to provide extra resources to them. Then not to mention all the mental, social and emotional issues that our students have because they've had to endure so much. So keep fighting for us or with us.
Absolutely, and I'm here to fight with you. I know what you're doing here on school board matters to the students and matters to the community. I want to amplify that voice as much as I can. Your needs, your wants, your concerns, and your victories as well, because that's what people need to hear around the state. And legislators specifically, y'all are the subject matter experts here. The people here in this room, you're the subject matter experts. And you know what's best for your schools and your districts. The people in Austin need to hear that, need to hear from your subject matter experts like yourselves to know how to make informed and the best decisions that really impact your district in the most positive way. So if there's any way I can help amplify your voice, make sure that I am on your side and cheering you on as you do that, I want to be a support.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And to my colleagues, you need to make sure that you know who your legislators are, legislators are, so that we can put the pressure on them. Go ahead, Mr. Diaz.
So just real quick, I think you already know this, but Sophie's 10,000-foot view for that half a second is more than a lot of people. Sophie was an executive at the San Antonio Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, where she led our workforce, our education initiatives. So she's being incredibly humble, and Raise Your Hand Texas is lucky to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, where are we? Item B, Policy Update 116, Affecting Local Policies, first reading. Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am, information is provided in the board packet. If at any time the board members have any questions, we'd certainly be wanting to answer those. We will bring them back in March for the final approval.
Okay, just remind everybody to get a chance to look those over. Cybersecurity, at-will employment, other types of contracts, wellness and health services, medical treatment, and community relations, conduct of school premises. So all of those are in our board book. Item C, the Judson Education Foundation 2020 State of the Foundation. Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am. Miss Lexi Greathouse has a beautiful flyer that brochure, but while she's passing those out, I also want to remind everybody, if you haven't, please remember Thursday is our gala. At least one of the hosts is very talented and funny. So that would be Mr. Diaz. That would definitely.
I'm pretty sure you meant yourself.
Not at all, not at all. But please, the campuses have done a tremendous job with the gift baskets. They have gone above and beyond. They are beautiful. The campuses, the departments. So if you haven't seen those, please check those out. There's something for everybody. For the gardener with the green thumb, the camper, the spa, the artist, just some amazing stuff. So sorry, Lexi, go ahead.
Oh, yes. Thank you, ma'am. Yes, as Dr. Ball said, good evening, everyone, again. As Dr. Ball mentioned, our gala is on Thursday, 6:30 p.m. Our link is on the Judson ISD website for anyone who would like to view us and join us that evening. We do recommend that you register yourself, that you're ready to go bid on any items. We will be streaming it live on YouTube and on Facebook, so you can join us from either of those locations. Some people have asked if they have to get dressed up at home. I tell them, no worries, wear whatever you want to wear. We won't be watching you. You'll just be watching us. Send us pictures. We'll make sure to share it for sure. So tonight I'm here to present you guys for the 2020 State of the Foundation. As many of you know, the Foundation's fiscal year goes from January to December, so I'm here to report on our fiscal year of 2020. We have created a video and I want to share it with you, and all of our numbers have been presented to you in your board packets. So if you have any questions after the video, I am happy to answer those for you. The Judson Education Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that seeks financial support from the community and corporate donors to provide and sustain district-wide opportunities for educational excellence in Judson ISD. During the unprecedented times in 2020, students and staff had to adjust and adapt quickly. Jeff was proud to be able to continue their support. Jeff also had to quickly pivot to meet the needs of the district and community. Here are some of the highlights over the last year. Jeff was proudly able to support 15 student scholarships totaling $30,000 and gifted each employee of the district $50 gift cards totaling $155,000. Whether it's time, money, or an in-kind donation, the success of our foundation depends on the generosity of our community and corporate partners. While we honor and appreciate all of our partners, we would like to especially recognize our top 10 corporate sponsors for 2020. With your continued support, the Judson Education Foundation is able to enrich teaching, inspire learning, and provide opportunities for excellence in education for all students in the Judson Independent School District. So as the numbers show, 2020 was not the best year for fundraising, but the foundation board members knew that that doesn't matter. The support of our teachers and our students are still there, and even more than ever. So that's why collaboratively with other partners, we were able to gift those gift cards to all employees and still fund scholarship for our students, because the world goes on. You know, the support is still there, and we still need to support our students, and so we really appreciate the partnership with the Judson ISD board, and we just want to say thank you for everything that you guys have done for us as well. And Ms. Canoyer, who sits as our liaison, and Dr. Ball, who is the secretary of the foundation, we really appreciate the partnership there too. Any questions?
No, I'd just like to make a comment that I appreciate what the Judson Education Foundation does for our teachers and for students also. I appreciate the work that you all do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Amazing. Thank you. Y'all have a good evening.
Thank you.
And we'll see you Thursday.
We're excited
virtually.
about Thursday.
Is it okay if we drink while we watch?
Item D, State of Impact Amendments submitted by the following charter schools: Essence Preparatory Charter, Basis, Texas, Seven Seas Academy, Pre-K through 8 Public Charter School, Compass Rose Academy, Great Hearts, Texas. Dr. Ball?
Yes, ma'am. These are the ones that came in previous to the meeting, but we've already gotten about 4 more. Yes, since this was published. So we continue to make our statement and then send back the form.
Okay, very good. And then
So they all want to be in Judson School District?
Not necessarily. They're just informing us that it could be a possibility.
that we would be impacted.
Yes.
Okay.
Because remember, they're always willing, wherever their location is at, if the parent is willing to drive them, they're always willing to take them. But so are we.
Without the parents driving, we'll drive.
No, I won't. Item E, update on board advisory committees. I know that the insurance committee has already met. Anybody like to give a report, Ms. Canoy or Ms. Eaton?
We did have a meeting, and I like what I heard, but the thing is, I'm there to listen as the board representative along with Ms. Canoya, because it's not going to have a direct impact on me. But I have concerns, some of which I've spoken to a couple of employees about that I don't understand. I think Ms. Canoya can speak better. Ms. Canoya can speak better on it because she actually has the experience of having the insurance. With the type of insurance I have, there'll never be no conversation about me paying no money for nothing. So I'd rather
You're
Ms.
very
Canoya
blessed.
express
Yes.
that.
Well, I was very excited to be a part of that conversation and listen to the presentation that was given. I want to thank Mr. Atkins and for really truly reaching out and working with our Alamo Insurance Group partners to look for different solutions. We know that health insurance costs rise every single year. Our teachers are paying more out of pocket, either in premiums, deductible, or co-insurance and out-of-pocket expenses. So we're not ready to put a full presentation in front of everybody, but we are looking at some possibilities that will make teachers have lower premiums, lower or no deductibles, and lower or no copays. And that's a win-win. So I appreciate all the hard work that the committee's put into that.
You got me on lower or no deductible.
And I want to thank all the staff members who participate in that and carry that information back to their campuses and departments. That it's a big job to be able to be the person who helps communicate that information, and I thank them all.
Thank you, Mr. Atkins. Our growth and planning meets tomorrow, is that correct, Dr. Fields? That would be at 5 o'clock or 5:30?
But just to be clear, that tomorrow's is a board. It's not the actual growth and planning.
All right.
I don't want the members to get confused. Tomorrow's just the board.
Okay, thank you. And are there any other committees that have met?
No, we met for the Hall of Honor Board Advisory Committee. And so it was great to be able to see who else was going to be on the board, on the committee, and just come together and be able to have their input in regards to the committee. And so we talked a little about the selection criteria. And so that was interesting to view and also to learn about. And so really, really glad to be a part of that.
Very good. Yeah, the talk right now is talking of restructuring some of the documents, so that's being worked on. Are there any other committees that anybody wants to report about? Okay.
Sorry.
Sure.
Do they have to be associated with Judson? The committees?
Well, yeah, these are the board advisory committees. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Does it have education in it?
So we'll move on then to item F, update on board trainings, conferences, events, and consider future agenda items. So, Mr. Diaz, go right ahead, sir.
So a couple of weeks back, and I don't think I've told everybody, COVID makes me forget things to tell everybody. So I was selected as part of the School Board Partners Fellowship. It's a 2-year fellowship that focuses on providing school board members from across the country, and there's 20 of us, additional governance training, leadership training. We get an executive coach. Really, they create infrastructure around us in order to help be the best trustees possible. So I started actually last Friday with a first 2-day session. It's all virtual, but normally it would be in person. and it's supported by the Dell Foundation and Melinda and Bill Gates Foundation, or Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and some other folks. It's really interesting because it takes a long, deep look into anti-racism policies, gender equity, just a lot of things that I think fit the tapestry of my personal perspective, but as well as, you know, bringing back some resources to the district. So I started that. It's a
That
two-year
sounds
process.
interesting. Keep us abreast of the things that you all discuss. And
Yes, ma'am.
anything else, future agenda items for anybody?
We have our governance training coming up.
As a matter of fact, that's correct. Our governance training starts tomorrow. Well, tomorrow's registration, however, it actually starts on Thursday. It's all virtual. I think that Mrs. Holmes has sent all of us the catalog so we can choose what classes, and we have until about how many months do we have to complete?
I'll have to verify, but it usually is a couple of months.
Yeah, it's usually a couple of months. But yeah,
But
that registration starts tomorrow. Excuse me, go ahead.
Sorry, no, my apologies, Madam President. I didn't mean to interrupt. I just didn't want to forget to announce it. Tomorrow, though you have the training with us, the governance camp from TASB will be recorded. So you can always watch it. So you can always watch it to gain more hours. So just wanted to share that. I didn't want anybody to feel bad that it conflicts with our meeting because that will be recorded.
Right, right. Thank you.
And it's actually, well, I found it last time especially, to be easier to go back and look at the recordings, because when you're trying to watch live, all kind of little strange things start happening. You get kicked out, try to get back, and so it was less frustrating to be comfortable and just, you know, watch it, because it flows, you know, once they recorded it.
Okay, let's move on to item 7, closed session. We have 5 items in closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, discussing personnel. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, discussing personnel report, updates including new hires, resignations, and administrative appointments. C, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071, attorney consultation regarding legal issues related to potential, anticipated, or pending construction litigation and construction issues. Pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.072, deliberation regarding the purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. And item E, pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.071 and 551.072, consultation with legal counsel regarding the possible transfer of a real property by the City of Converse to the district. It is now 8:08, and we will go into closed session. Thank you. The time now is 9:23, and we're back in open session. Consider and take possible action regarding the contract renewal lists for teachers, nurses, librarians, counselors, campus, and district office administrators for the 2021-2022 school year. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the contract renewal list as presented.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded. We'll start our voting with Ms. Eaton. Ms. Eaton?
Deborah Eaton, aye. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. King?
Shatanya King, aye.
Mr. Diaz?
Rafael Diaz, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Item B, consider and take possible action regarding the personnel report and updates, including new hires, resignation, and administrative appointments. Is there a motion?
I move we approve the personnel report and updates as presented.
I second it. We'll start with Mr. Diaz.
Rafael Diaz, aye.
Ms. King?
Shatanya King, aye.
Ms. Canoyer?
Suzanne Canoyer, aye.
Ms. Rodriguez?
Jennifer Rodriguez, aye.
Ms. Eaton?
Deborah Eaton, aye.
Renee Pichelle, aye. Motion passes unanimously. Consider and take action regarding the legal issues related to potential anticipated or pending construction litigation and construction issues. Is there a motion? Oh, no action on this one, and there will be no action on the real property either? Or the pool, okay. No action on C, D, or E. Is there anything else that any board member wants to share? Or the administration?
No, just thank you to the board for everything y'all do.
You are quite welcome, and so we'll see those of you that will be here physically tomorrow, and those by Zoom, we'll see you by Zoom. This meeting is adjourned at 9:26 p.m. Thank you.